Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum dear students. Our current session focuses on the role of learners, teachers and materials in content-based instruction. I hope and expect by the end of this session you would have some understanding and knowledge of what is the positioning of learners and teachers in a CBI course, as well as you would have some know-how of the nature of materials that are used in CBI. Well, I would start with the role of the learners. Well, the goal for the learner is to become autonomous so that they can come to understand their own learning process. In other words, the learner is expected to take charge of his or her own situation and his or her own learning process. And in this process, the learner has to be active and has to be conscious. Most CBI courses anticipate that students will support each other, and it would be the learning would be taking place under some collaborative model of learning. This may be a challenge to those students who are accustomed to more whole class or independent learning and teaching based models, but the aim is to prepare the students to do that. CBI is in the learning by doing school of pedagogy. So the learners are expected to perform language. They are expected to have discourse, to express their knowledge or information that they get through this content-based instruction. And in the process of this doing, they are expected to learn language. This also assumes an active role by the learners, not in a unidimensional way, but in multiple or multi-dimensions. The learners are active interpreters of the input that comes to them in the form of contents. They are expected to be willing to tolerate uncertainty along with the path of learning, and as they are going through the process of learning, to bear with the process. They are expected to be willing to explore alternative routes of learning and alternative strategies that can be used for learning as well. Also, it is expected that they would be willing to seek multiple interpretations of both the oral and the written texts. Well, in a CBI course, learners themselves may be the sources of content and joint participants in the selection of the topics or the themes or the activities that are to be used in a classroom. Such participation, according to Stryker and Leaver 1993, has been found to be highly motivating and has resulted in a course changing its direction in order to better meet the needs of students. In other words, what we can say is that during the process of the course as it is being run, depending upon the needs of the students and depending upon the nature of their active participation in the course and the kind of interest that they would show, the dimension or the directions of the course, which also means the contents of the course, may change. As compared and contrasted to the role of the learner, when we look at the role of the teachers in a CBI course, actually it is anticipated that a change in the typical role of language teachers would be brought. Instructors must be more than just good language teachers because they have to mainly teach the content, that is information or a piece of knowledge that is beyond the linguistic structures, or that itself is not a language lesson. They must be knowledgeable in the subject matter that they are teaching. So, for example, a history teacher must be knowledgeable in history, a biology teacher must have the knowledge of biology, etc., along with the knowledge of language. At a more detailed level, teachers have to keep context and comprehensibility foremost in their planning and presentation of the contents to the students, and the teachers are expected to be responsible for selecting and adapting the authentic materials to be used as contents in their classrooms. They become teachers who would guide the student needs, and they would be the analysts of the needs of the students, and thus they would create a classroom. It would be the responsibility of the teachers to create a classroom that would be completely learner-centered. Brinton et al. Note they are asked to, that is the teachers are asked to view their teaching in a new way from the perspective of truly contextualizing their lessons by using content as the point of departure. They are almost certainly committing themselves to materials adaptation and development. So a very serious responsibility of adapting the materials to suit the needs of the students and to develop these kind of materials, this lies on the shoulders of a teacher in a CBI course. Stryker and Leaver 1993 suggests the following essential skills for any CBI instructor. Number 1, varying the format of the classroom instruction instead of following one monotonous way of doing that. Number 2, using group work and team building processes and techniques for the purposes of teaching the contents. Number 3, organizing jigsaw reading arrangements so that all the learners could be involved in different parts of the contents. Fourthly, defining the background knowledge and language skills that are required for the success of a student. Fifthly, helping the students develop coping strategies so that they could cope with the needs of the course and they could cope with the peers in the classroom. And sixthly, using process approaches to writing. They further focus using appropriate error correction techniques are also to be used by the instructor, and developing and maintaining high levels of student esteem is the 8th point that with reference to instructors is pointed out. So almost all the participating instructors comment on the large amounts of time and energy that is involved in designing, developing and running content-based course, and it seems to be a major challenge in this regard. Taking up this challenge requires a highly motivated and dedicated individual as a teacher for the classroom. As far as the nature of materials or the type of materials that are to be used in CBI are concerned, the materials that facilitate language learning are the materials that are typically used with the subject matter of that particular subject that is taken as the content. And it is recommended that a rich variety of material types needs to be identified and needs to be used with the concern that they have to be authentic or real life-like. Brinton et al. Asserts, in one sense, authenticity implies that the materials are like the kind of materials that are used in native language instruction. In other sense, authenticity refers to the introduction of various kind of materials, which would include newspapers, magazine articles, other media materials, and the kind of materials that were not originally actually produced for the purposes of language teaching, but they were otherwise part of the real life activities.